Hello, everybody. Welcome. Look who's here.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah. Hi, Dave. I'm so happy you're here.
I'm great. Yeah, despite the daylight savings change. What happens to me 4 times a year,
Right?
right?
Yeah.
Because you guys change and we change, but not at the same time.
Oh, okay. So
Literally,
you're gonna change like.
who knows? I just use a machine to do it. My math skills can't go from 14 and a half to 15 and a half. That's just never going to happen. As
Oh,
you can ask my clients.
yeah. It's so
I will tell
wild.
you.
Yeah. It's so wild that extra 30 minutes.
And that again, it's just like I live in a city that's 30 minutes off of Sydney. Does that
Oh,
make any sense? No, it just makes the math harder.
yeah.
Fractions, it's like sixth grade fractions.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'm so happy you're here. So, everyone, Dave and I, we're going to talk about, we've been kind of changing in our work, kind of similarly. And we thought it would be kind of cool to do a few shows and talk about spirit, talk about our changes, talk about why this is so important, for this time. Because we understand how the energy is changing, but we're all experiencing that, right?
Yeah.
So we just want to explore that, kind of like for us, the dark night of the psychic soul, you
Yeah.
know, right? Like how we started in one place and yes, we advance, but at the same time, there's grief around it, or there's change, or we wind up in places that we don't recognize. So yeah, David, what you were saying earlier was really cool. Can you kind of recap? Do you remember what you were saying?
No, I don't. I don't have it. Can't remember. What
Okay.
was
Well, we were talking about how we started out maybe in politics or during that time to kind of manage our response to the last administration and geopolitically and how it's changed. But um, you were just remarking on how things have changed.
Yeah, well, I came to this because I was watching Linda G and Lena and Kristen and all these great people. And hey, I was entertained by it, but I was like, wow, these are my people. This is what I want to talk about. And I need to know this future because it's stressing me out. I'm just very worried about the state of democracy in America. And as we
Mhm.
all did that, we started to, if you're watching somebody do tarot cards and be intuitive, then you're like, well, hey, I could be a little bit intuitive too, maybe in the same way or a different way. And I think everybody started to go, where's my intuition? And if I am in sort of intuiting the same things that everybody's intuiting, all of us knew this was a danger. And some of us knew from the facts, but we also knew just at an intuitive level, things are really changing. So I started, and my trajectory was, first these tarot card readers, and then I decided to strike out on my own. And thank you again, Lena Rodriguez, because it really was her show that made me a known person. And
Right.
I want to thank all these people who have put me on their show. I super appreciate it. But once that started, I was like, oh, quantum healing, what's that? And trance channeling. Wow, what's that? It took me a while to warm up to trance channeling. I wasn't so sure about doing that myself in the beginning, but a lot of people, I noticed, just this world opened up, and it
Right.
was weird because at the same time, one world was closing. People were starting to shut down certain friendships, even relationships and families and stuff like that. We literally shut down the nation through a medical emergency. And as that happened, controversies emerged and really big ethical questions that made us have to choose, right? You
Right.
know, will I wear a mask for the sake of another, if not myself? That's
Right.
a difficult question. All of us were thrown into the same soup to
Right.
ask this thing. So we're like losing things and fighting things and figuring things out and dealing with information and disinformation. At the same time, there was this light, and there were people like you that cared, people like you that were uniting people and bringing them together. And at the same time, there were people who were completely divisive. This is like this crazy world that we were living in of optimism and pessimism, sort of just light, dark, every day, battling every morning.
Right.
And I think there's something people haven't really talked very much about, which is the new way that we communicate.
Yes.
At the beginning, you and all the others were just such a great service. Here we have this new internet service, and we can immediately create new friendships online. Like 95% of my friendships are people I've never met, like you, in the flesh, right? Here's this great, world. But at the same time, now a host of people are being manipulated by fake ideas. We don't even know who the manipulators are. And so there was just shadow and light at the same time. And it was like everybody is thrust into this battle. The information is coming super quickly. And I don't know about you, but I have to constantly fight internet addiction.
Yes.
If I've got a half an hour in between appointments, well, 20 years ago, I would have read a book, a little calmer. Instead, I'm like, I get to my clients and I have to spend 5 minutes watching mood music to calm myself down. This is everybody in America right now. It's just the stress levels and the almost inability to pull away from this mesmerizing field of just millions of choices, millions of rabbit holes that you can go down. I hope everybody knows that, just, because I'm doing spiritual work, it doesn't mean I don't go down these doom scrolling rabbit holes. I just 4.5 layers. I'm like, what am I, Lily? Like, it's midnight. What have I been doing with my life? And it doesn't stop there. It's almost an everyday. Stop yourself, Dave. Stop, Dave. Stop. Don't do it.
Right.
And here's the contradiction where people are watching us on YouTube and we're telling, don't do too much YouTube.
Except us. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, every single newscaster isn't talking about internet addiction.
Right. Yeah.
It's a totally, but we have no tools to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way that anybody is getting on YouTube and telling us to slow down with this information.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the good thing about the spirituality is that people did go, oh, I am going to read that book. Or, oh, I'm going to learn past life regression. Or, oh, I'm going to watch these positive videos. There's great music you can listen to. If you use spiritual music on YouTube, you get like the greatest calming, archangel singing. I'm very fond of Melon. She really calms me down. Super fond of looking at just nature scenes in America.
Oh yeah, hummingbird spot.
Oh God, that's a good one. I haven't tried that one.
Oh my gosh, this woman, she hunts these hummingbirds to take photos of. Like, today we're going out, and she's got this great voice. We're looking for the white-breasted, yellow-crested. She's in Ecuador, and she shoots these. But it's just wonderful. It's a wonderful way to escape.
It's like a palette of choices of things, but we have to, every minute we are forced to make a choice. Every second, turn it on, keep looking, positive or negative. Every second. This is tremendous pressure on us as humans. Right. It's just, in medieval times, I don't think people went on diets. There just wasn't any extra food available for 99% of the people. It's just not an issue, right? There is. My partner's Indian, and we were looking at YouTube videos of India 100 years ago. Every single person is a stick, and you're like, just barely enough food. It's not like enough or healthy looking. They kind of look like, wow, how do you pull that rickshaw, man? Jeez, it's like you're like this thin, Those people are going on diets. So now we live in a feast time of distractions, and
Mhm.
we can go anywhere we want. And I'm constantly fighting this myself.
All right.
So I don't mean to criticize people. I am constantly battling this. I love to go to rage sometimes. I
Yeah.
love to be like, stupid idiot. I hate that. And
Right.
sells, anger sells,
Hmm.
rage sells, and
Yeah.
fear sells.
Right.
And a lot of the things that we are doing and the readers are doing is trying to get some control over this fear and say, these things will work out. We can predict them. We can, in some sense, manage them just
Hmm.
by looking at them. And think of the love that all of those readers are putting out there. It's not just a job.
No.
It's a service, and it's
Yeah.
hard. It's really hard work.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Very
Yeah.
much. So.
Right on. Somebody said, "Don't forget to hit the like button."
Yeah.
Somebody
Thank
says, "Junk food tastes good." I hear you.
Thank you for being here, everybody. Gosh, we've got 364 folks in the house, so that's awesome. Thank
Uh-huh.
you. So, Dave, you went off to Ayers Rock like a year ago, right?
Yeah, yeah, a
So,
couple years.
I mean, you don't have to get too personal, but like, what was going on, and what prompted you to go, and what happened? Like the before, the after.
So this was kind of paired with Dolores Cannon's book. I believe They Walked with Jesus was the book.
Oh,
And I had a full-on revelation. And I mean, when I say revelation, I literally downloaded tons of information. And I tell you, my partner found me crying on the floor. Like I was crying
wow,
so loudly that he was like, what is going on? And he almost had to carry me because it was just
wow,
that. I've never experienced anything like that. I was bawling like a child, just
wow.
25 minutes of constant crying and uncontrollable tears. So that was one of the events. I think it happened just after Ayers Rock. But when we were going to Ayers Rock, my partner's more interested in going there because I grew up in Southern California. So the environment of the desert, I'm like, it's a desert, it's just who cares? It's a desert. So it's like my backyard, without any plants, it's just no big deal. But he was wanting to go, and I'm happy to go anywhere, virtually anywhere. I love traveling, and it doesn't matter to me. And we had the first trip ever where we got in a bus with a bunch of people because I did not want to drive through the desert of Australia with snakes, no taipans. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing a car breakdown in the middle of a desert. No way. So we took this bus, and we were like 16 people, and they were all from different countries, different ages, and totally different people. There was an 18-year-old and a 72-year-old, and everything in between the two. Every type of person. We're pretty certain one of them was an actual spy. Okay, because he's the details of all the armaments that he knew about in his cover story. I hope I haven't blown his cover, but all these, and if you're sitting on a bus for somebody for a day, you're like, hi, but you don't really talk. But 5 days in, we were friends with everybody on that bus. So it was almost like an international, UN sort of cultural meeting for that time. And the places were far more interesting and beautiful than I thought. And let me tell you, the most beautiful thing about Australia is lying in their they have kind of a bed sleeping bag thing. It's like a sleeping bag with a mattress. It's quite
Okay.
cool at night in the desert. So you sleep in the thing that they call a swag, and you have to do things like put your shoes under the swag. You know why? Because the dingoes will come and get them and take them out of the desert. You'll
Oh,
have one shoe.
really?
At night you're sleeping and
Wow.
the dingoes are just running around looking for stuff, which is quite an exciting experience.
Wow.
Knowing that is happening, and I saw them, they did hang around.
Yeah.
So, but you're lying there, and it's pretty cold at night, and you're just lying under this vast sky.
Okay.
And the sky is bigger in Australia, and nobody can explain why, but it's just huge. It's just this enormous place, this enormous sky. Part of it is there's no lights in the middle of the desert. So you can see the Southern Cross. It's almost like you can see the distances between
Oh,
stars. And so it's very magical. And everybody commented on like, you need to go to the bathroom, but you like wait for half an hour because it's cold and it's not so bad because you're like, wow, the whole time. And
beautiful.
still, no revel. It was fun and great and interesting. And I literally come home and I sit down and I don't do anything else. And I'm like, I said to my partner, something's going on. And he's like, what? And I go, I'm having difficulty speaking about it. And he's like, oh, how about a glass of water? And you should know my partner is not skeptical, but he's not 100%. He doesn't believe 100%.
Yeah.
Ironic, since his parents are Hindu. He doesn't disbelieve, but he doesn't believe. He's just sort of, checking it out. And for 3 days, it was like I would only speak in a minimum way.
Ooh.
Somehow, I was not raised in a religious background at all, but that the real story of Christ, which you would find in, actually meeting him or reading Dolores Cannon, and it's totally different. He's totally feminist. He's 100% radical. Basically, a really good guy that you would want to meet. None of the stuff that we are told from the hierarchy is really true about him.
Right.
And I started to look at everyone with compassion. So if you're a cyclist, people cut you off and you're like, yeah, I'm batting, and how dare you? Don't you watch? I'm calling the cops. And you do that kind of anger sort of thing. And instead I would be like, tap, tap. Excuse me, ma'am. I just want to let you know you almost hit me. And people would react like, oh, I'm so sorry, sir.
Oh.
And somehow I got beyond any kind of rage, and I would just use these very simple, like homeless people, and I would just look at them and I would say something like, I found myself even like surreptitiously doing a cross for a person that was homeless, or like closing my eyes and just sending them love. Just nothing ostentatious, just being like compassion, love, just saying kind words to strangers. And they were almost always just, somehow for 3 days, I knew just what to say. And I would like, somebody's raging at you and you'd be like, they need compassion. Live in the compassion. And I don't want to make it like that's the way that you should act. You have your own emotions. You want to protect yourself and stuff, and people get angry, you get angry. But somehow I was just able to, and I haven't had that since, 100% be able to see whatever person was confronting me as a portion of myself.
Wow.
And as almost asking me, Dave, what do you have to learn here? What is Donald Trump teaching you?
Mm-hmm.
And that soon after I did a video, which was compassionate for him.
Nice.
And it really was compassionate. If you look at Donald Trump as a 3-year-old, he's just a nice little boy. Yeah. It's just that he had a horrific father and a mom that allowed that to happen. That is every sexist pig you will meet. Mm-hmm. They just have horrible parents that taught them horrible values. Mm-hmm. And in some sense, we are the lucky ones, okay? Because perhaps we rebelled against those values and we were able to survive it. Perhaps we just had much better people as parents. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, and I had to ask my partner how long it lasted, because I had like not a very good sense of time. And he's like, without 3 days. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah. And then on Tuesday morning, it was over. You're your regular self. And I was like, okay. I thought I went all the way to Thursday, but no, Dave. You were bitching me out about the dishes in the sink on Tuesday morning. You're your regular self. I'm like, so it's there's something about that place that is magic. And I don't want to compare like the whole Christian thing with this thing, because they're not different. if you truly get to the essence of what the energies are of those places, the compassion, the beauty, all of that stuff, it's perhaps a totally different version of, the truth, or a different way to get to that. But
Mm-hmm.
maybe the only time that I really interacted with Aboriginal people, because it's quite difficult to do. Most Aboriginal people do not interact with the city at all. They
Mm-hmm.
stay where they are and they live their lives, and they want no contact, because the contact just causes problems in their culture. So you usually don't interact, and those people in the city are in a place of total distraction, I'm afraid, those Aboriginal people. So the only place, maybe one time in Sydney, but other than that, Alice Springs, which you have to go to get to Ayers Rock, most people go to get to Ayers Rock. That's the only place where they would give demonstrations of their lore and their culture and talk about their hunting and the meaning of them. And it's wonderfully interesting because it's so different. For example, Aboriginal people don't count, they don't have numbers that are very high because it's not necessary.
Yeah.
The
No.
tribes of no more than 100 people, perhaps. So
Hey,
you don't need to count beyond 100. You're trying to kill two kangaroos.
wow.
So you don't need to count to 20. You don't need 20 kangaroos to have dinner.
Right.
Just kidnap a boomerang.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so they're all of just these things of that I don't really understand much of.
Right.
That was sort of the first way to go in. And
Mm-hmm.
if you don't know that much, you're kind of going into those stars just via intuition.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of Christian lore gets in the way of, actual contact with a divine power.
Right.
I think that's less true in Buddhism, for example. But
Mhm.
without any structures, you could just go there.
Right. So, do you think there's something magical about Ayers Rock,
And
or
everybody says it.
what do you think that is? It ET energy? Is it the Aboriginal?
I'm going to say both. If you read again Dolores Cannon's book, she really believes that ETs came and intertwined with the native existing people, and that's where the Stonehenge comes from.
Uh
That
huh.
she has got people to regress and told her that, and I do believe that that is true. And when you're there, I mean, if I just check into the energy now, it's like it feels more Aboriginal than anything else. But it's almost like going into that mystery place, which we couldn't really describe. It's
Right.
like, if you have a religious experience, you can't really explain it.
Yeah.
It's like, it was magical. Well, what happened? Well, I
Right.
don't know. I just understood everything in a new way, and it totally changed my life forever.
Yeah.
It's sort of like that. And I think, maybe I would ask you, like, there's a little bit of that in Sedona.
Mm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
imagine if I spent a week in Sedona or around that desert, Shasta it's not the same energy.
Mm-hmm.
Can't describe it. That has a more of a Native American feeling, and I can't tell you beyond the feeling what it is. But
Mm-hmm.
every single person who's gone to Ayers Rock has something like, look, pictures, no, you can't take a picture of it. It's a feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think there are energy spots on this planet, and I
Yeah.
think that they are different, but that they have, if you go there, you're closer to talking to the ETs or the first people of the planet.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic.
Have you felt this in any particular place?
Yes. 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 I feel it here in New Mexico,
Yeah.
where I live. I feel the magic. I mean, right
Mhm.
where my house sits, and McKenna, my daughter, we just love it here. We talk about how good it feels here. Feels like magic to us up here in these mountains. But in Santa Fe, yes, there's something magical. And so when I did the workshop 2 Junes ago in Santa Fe, and we were driving out to Chimayo, and you pass the exit that will take you to Los Alamos. So the road wise. And, there's just something about the sky. Like I can see almost the energy. It's like a blue, haze, but it's static. It's moving. And, but Oppenheimer was right in my face. And, yeah, and talking about that, the vortices that are there between Los Alamos and Chimayo and Santa Fe, and that this is how our ET friends, how it's a portal that gets created. It's like a shortcut in the universe.
Yeah.
Yeah, going from, as we used to say on a show in the past, was the IKEA ballroom, like, those side doors in IKEA, and you can get from one place to another really quickly. And that's what that is there. And the ETs are quite active here. And that's so, yeah. Yeah. But so what happened after? I mean, you were like, in this state, and your partner was like, yeah, he saw it.
Yeah.
But for you, what was it like after? Was there a significant change in your spiritual work, in your inability, or anything like that?
Well, I'll tell people, there's a come down from that. That is, once you've done it, it's kind of like, why work? It's just, why have a job? It's like everything's the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
So I'm just gonna just chill all day long. It's like, you're kind of like, Dave, you need to pay the rent, TikTok, and there was a bit of a, why bother? So what if I'm homeless? Kind of person. It's I got to give my partner a lot of credit for dealing with this, because of course he's like, oh God, I'm going to work, Dave. Yeah. So there was that, and there was even like a month later where I went on a vacation, and I actually had the opposite experience. I was totally depressed for a week, almost catatonic, and it was almost like up, down. And it was like, oh, I've reached all these energies, but there's still these energies here. There's still a shadow on the planet, And I think a lot of people, when you have that full-on religious experience, and then you have this sort of come down time, it's like almost like the opposite. And all I could see was the negatives about my own life. I couldn't stick to the schedule that I had planned. Every morning I'd just get up and I'd like mope around, and I'd just stay up late, and I just watch YouTube all day. It was just a miserable experience, especially for my partner. And I didn't know why.
Right.
Like, what's going on? I just had this great revelation. What's going on? And so I went through sort of the depression of that and came out. But so it's kind of like an up down. And then I went to a somewhat neutral space, but still I could feel, first of all, I could feel those energies much closer. It was like at the click of my fingers, I could go more quickly into channel. And at that time, I was not trance channeling. I was just doing like, get an image, explain it, get an image, explain it. Now I really am able to almost like let spirit speak through me, right? Mm-hmm. To anybody out there who's trying to do that, I'm totally aware of there is every reason for you to take this carefully and gingerly. You need to feel safe and protected. You need for events in your life not to pop into your channeling. It is totally accessible to people, but I felt it important to work my way into being totally safe before I did that. And I actually did it with a group of people who were experienced. Mm-hmm. So they were were able to help me. And I do that, by the way, on with a group of people that are the Conscious Cosmic Collective. We just created a new name, so I hope I'm not miss saying. If I'm saying it wrong, I'll say it again. But yeah, so it was still closer. I could still get to, hey, show compassion. I could still get to a state of almost like greater empathy, and that has not changed. So, and anybody who's doing this, there's a bit of a roller coaster, but you wind up really being at a somewhat, your vibration does rise. It's just not possible for all of us to be religious people all the time. We live in a confusing universe, and we all have problems, and we deal with jerks, and we get rear-ended, and then the person drives away and it makes you angry, right? Or you see horrible cruelty and you emotionally respond to that. So people sometimes think that people who channel are these elevated, we never have any, we've solved all of our social personal problems, the income just rolls in naturally. I thought that. It's just like, oh, now these people, they already have a fantastic job. All they do is meditate and follow the schedule all day and to everybody. And it's a battle every day to be that. The battle that Jen and I are fighting every day is no different from the battle that you and the audience are fighting. It just, we don't necessarily get on the show and tell you, what we're dealing with, the negatives, and moving and landlords and all that stuff. So yeah, I was always able to just be a little bit more calmer. I think it also really helped me work on my anger because things make me angry, and maybe even a little bit more quickly than the average person because of things I've seen and experienced, and maybe because of my clients, they call and tell me, and I talk to them. People really suffer terrible things in the world. All that happy clappy stuff is, when we're doing that, I hope we can't ignore that people are really suffering and they really don't deserve it, and they really need empathy and sympathy, and we have to hear that. I need somebody to hear that from me when I'm on my off time. Okay. I need to, hear my tears.
Right. Yeah. And that what you said, when you grow, when you expand, when you rise, it's exciting, and it's almost like a high, and it just feels like nothing I've ever felt. It's just buzz, but there's that other side, that, like you said, coming down, and things, I've been in a funk for a while because of that energy. And so I think, folks, we need to talk about that, to understand that, a spiritual journey it's beautiful and wonderful, but we are also humans, right? And so when we rise and grow, there's that entropy that falls off. It's like a grief energy that to fall away. So if you find yourself getting in a funk and getting like you're scritching and scratching, and things are irritating you, that's what's happening, is that the energy of all of your experiences, that energy from your imprint, needs to catch up, or it needs to fall away. So it's a catching up and shedding, right?
Well, there's almost like a portion of your personality that you're giving up. If you think about you and I 10 years ago, what were our aspirations? What would you think we want? Oh, I want to live in a beautiful house, and I want this money, and I want to have this great job, and have all these friends. And, as I've tried to move more towards that, much of that has been given away. I don't care that much about some of those things anymore. So it's kind of like a Dave died. A younger Dave, portions of him died, and we gave up those values and all that stuff. And there's a little bit of a feeling of loss. I'm much happier now than I think I would have been if I achieved some of those things. But there is a bit of a loss, and there's also just the things that were important to you aren't important to you anymore. Even some of the people that you might know now are friendships that are gone. That's extremely saddening and difficult to deal with. It's heart-wrenching. Many of my clients will say they are not speaking to some members of their family. Some of them are so alone, they are not speaking with any members of their family.
Yeah.
And that is rough. Mm-hmm. That is a high price to pay for a spiritual awakening.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very good.
Mm-hmm. But the positive, of course, is the incredible bravery of all of those watching. Just the bravery to go into the breach. The bravery also to be born at this time and deal with these issues and have to constantly be battling and negotiating with ourselves and with everything around us. This cannot be overstated, the bravery of human beings to experience the really tough childhoods that a lot of us have experienced. That is heroic. You must not underestimate yourselves. And some people will say, oh, Dad didn't beat me. It wasn't that bad. I don't care how bad it was. There was bad stuff there that you had to deal with. And probably you kept getting told by the spiritual world, well, you signed up for that. So that's your big deal. That's your issue. And, that wasn't the compassion that you were looking for.
No. No. Beautiful. Very good. So, the dark night of the psychic soul. Right?
What you can do is meditate. Talk to people. Oh, here's one weird example.
Yeah.
One day I thought I was in serious medical trouble because I went to my neighbors and I'm like, what is that damn ringing going on? Is there some kind of workman going on? And my neighbors were like, Dave, there's no ringing. And I'm like, what's going on there? I talked to my partner, Dave, I'm like, can you hear it? And he's like, no. It was a ear ringing thing. And I go on YouTube and I looked it up. I have some channels that I work with, and they're like, Dave, it's a spiritual awakening thing. Mm-hmm. So I went to YouTube and sure enough, it's a thing. Mm-hmm. And there are plenty of people who deal with it it is an issue, ringing in the ears. But it went away after a few days of researching that, and I had to see that it's almost like a new way of hearing.
Right. Yeah.
That's one of many things that happens to people during this time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's upsetting, like, oh my God, I'm losing my hearing. I got to go to the doctor. And the doctor would probably prescribe you some meds and perform an operation, and you're even further lost. Yeah. So it's really a thing that, YouTube is that contradiction. It gives you a lot of answers. If something like this is going on, be sure to, check it out. Mm-hmm. But even those answers that you're getting, some of those people aren't going to be for you. You got to, I would say always too, and this is something, check in your heart. Does it feel good? Right. And if you encounter an entity, check in your heart, just close your eyes and be like, does this feel good? I always ask people to, when I'm teaching them to channel, ask that spirit to show you something that lets you know it comes from the light. Mm-hmm. And it will always show you something if it's accurate. If it is a positive force, it will show you something. I also ask them to ask for a name. Mm-hmm. And those two things, it's really important. Before you walk through a doorway into the spirit world, you really look at the door and be very honest and say, I'm not entirely comfortable with that door, Dave. Okay, move it aside. And now we'll wait for the real door, because you must be in control. It's not spirit that is showing up and controlling you. You are choosing, okay, I'm going to choose this positive force and allow them to speak through me. It's really important that you check that and make sure that it feels good in your heart.
Right.
I think a lot of people spontaneously, the good stuff just showed up.
Right.
But you want to be careful. You want to make sure it's not just something that's feeding your ego. There are low-level spirits that are just more about, maybe mundane things. And maybe they kind of have an agenda with you where they want you to be subject to them. And I don't believe there's evil in the universe, but I believe there is illness in the universe, and I believe there are tricky spirits. So if it always works every time. I will always ask my clients, how you feeling in your heart right now when you look at that door? And they will always go, meh, or I don't like it. One woman, when I asked her to go through the door, I'm like, I always say, describe the door. She's like, it's a refrigerator door. And I'm like, so how do you feel about that door? And she's like, I don't like it. I'm like, no, don't go through. I wouldn't go through a refrigerator door. You're not supposed to do that anyway.
Yeah, you don't go through the door.
All she needed to do was push that aside and wait for the real door to show up. And it wasn't a bad thing. It was really the universe saying, hey, look, be a little skeptical here. In the future, when you're dealing with spirit, we need to bring in some skepticism when we're doing that. Otherwise, we'd all be following some guru and just believe everything that they say.
Yeah.
This is not the time to follow guru. This time is for us all to become a guru.
Exactly.
It is not the time to follow another.
Right. And we all have that power.
Yes. And that's the wonderful thing about this work.
Right. All right.
Has it.
Let's open it up for some questions, you guys. Do you have any spiritual questions for me or David? It's been really wonderful to explore this. I think it's so important. I mean, I think it's very important for folks to realize that, I mean, you're going to hear all kinds of information and different ideas, like about, I have my ideas and my channelings about the dimensions. I have my ideas about channeling, multidimensional channeling. Dave's got his method and his beliefs and what works for him. So, you're going to run into all kinds of people that speak about this. And so it's okay, you guys, to formulate your own opinion, your own methods, your own abilities. I really want folks to feel that, right? That whatever you feel, whatever you think is good. It's all good.
And you can. I mean, I think I was born maybe a little bit more inclined to do this work. But I didn't know anything about it. A couple of weird events happened during childhood, but I didn't know anything about it. I didn't understand anything about it. I just started to read some stuff. And eventually I got here. Everyone can do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't buy it. That looks like a Ouija board.
Yes. All right. So what do we have here? Well, Julie had a question for you, but now she has to be her own guru. She's
okay. Yes. Well, I'll tell you, the Ouija board point is an interesting one. One of my first experiences were people who were using a Ouija board, and they were calling in spirit, and they were channeling. I didn't even know what channeling was until that happened. But of course, they were very experienced with this Ouija board, and they knew what they were doing.
They did. Did it feel good? My grandma used to have a Ouija board.
Okay, look, this was one of those life-changing experiences. I was in a totally difficult place. I was 21. My roommates were all drug addicts. It was like my third drug addict roommate apartment. I was like, oh my God, I'm going crazy trying to study and run a job at the same time. I was so frustrated. And I was in a class and I worked with this woman. We were doing this spiritual class, and she said that she'd done this channeling, and I'm like, what's that? And she told me what it was, and I'm like, wow, that's so interesting. Last day of class, she's like, you want to come? And I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, you want to come to some channeling tonight? And I'm like, heck yeah. And I went there with another guy in this class. This was SF State. And he was the assistant wrestling coach. Okay. He was not this woo-woo guy. He was as, regular guy material as you could imagine. Another lady, I think her name was Vanessa. We sat there all night long like this. Like, how could you know that about me?
Wow.
How did you know that happened to me when I was 13? And it would be like this directive. They were so good. I mean, far better than myself. They would go, she would do this reason when they get to number 5. And she would say, oh, they're saying that you are halfway through your life's purpose. And this is why you're so confused right now, because you're right in the middle and you don't know where to go. I was like, oh my God. Okay. Revelation after revelation after revelation. We didn't give them any money. They made the coffee. It was just like a life-changing event. And I walked home to my house. I opened the door under the sink, and a Seth book fell off the top of the trash and landed in front of me.
Oh my goodness.
I had never heard of Seth.
Wow.
And it said the cover had been ripped off. My roommate worked at a bookstore. The cover had ripped off, and it said something like channeling. I was like,
I read this book, Dave. You're going to do that.
Right. Had it had the cover, I'm not sure I would have got it. But I was like, I literally burst into laughter. I'm like, okay, got it. I still, after reading that book, I had no idea what channel.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Em is asking, do you go to readers or the light or intuit for yourself?
So both. I am more likely actually to, I do go to, people that I work with, and we sort of channel for each other. Jen's a great example. We really combine our energies and stuff and are able to verify each other. So yeah, and I need that because I don't want to be high on my own fire here. I could be totally wrong and go into ego or denial, or I don't want to see that. And I really appreciate the other people that I work with who are like, Dave, you're full of it. No, Dave, you're totally wrong about this. Or you need to take a step back, Dave, and look at what's really going on here. Absolutely. I have also channeled for myself. I'm like a little bit less likely to believe it for myself because that's like I'm reading for myself, and it's almost like, look at the question channel, look at the question channel. Just asks about alcohol, and I think that's a really, really, really good question. There are so many substances available to us. All of those are like really portions of how we work with it. I would just say to you, looks like M, that you would just, is it interfering with your life? If you're, if it's not interfering, it's like, I have the same thing, with coffee, for example. I've got myself down to a cup and a half. This is nothing short of a miracle. But it really is like, I had to ask myself, how much of this is kind of amping me up and distracting me? How much of this is me just trying to cover up feelings that I don't want to deal with? Just like we work on our own. It's really hard because it's 9 o'clock and you got to get started. You're like, how about another cup of coffee? Oh, I really need some more incense before I do my work. And you can fiddle with that for 3.5 hours. And it is just totally a present question about how much coffee you should drink. Is it okay to smoke marijuana? Is it okay to drink alcohol? I would just say, for us personally, every individual, we have to ask, is this substance compensating for something? Am I putting some trauma at bay that I can't live with and substituting with the substance? I'm not going to say that I haven't done that, because I have. And everybody out there is dealing with this on some level. Maybe it's shopping, all of this, everything about our culture tells us, don't look at negative stuff. Don't look at negative stuff. Don't look at negative stuff. Well, it's there and it's painful. And it's very hard to do that kind of work, especially if you're alone. I would say to anybody who's working with that kind of issue, really consider what's behind it. It's not about willpower. If you are substituting a substance so that you can do your work, you have done that as a coping mechanism to get you out of bed in the morning. And there may have been plenty of good reason for you to do that coping mechanism to survive.
Mhm.
Now, is it limiting you? Right? And I would not, smoke or drink alcohol every night because I think it would definitely get in the way.
Mhm.
There are times when, there's a social event where I don't think that it's a problem. But I am always asking myself that question. And it's really necessary to sit there and evaluate yourself and say, is it preventing some kind of pain? And
Right.
am I ready to deal with that pain? And if I am ready to deal with that pain, you need a strategy, right? You need support. You need you look at YouTube videos again, not obsessively, but look at those and see, is there support out there? Somebody I'm trusting who's going to give me really practical advice.
Mhm.
I use Teal Swan, and I say that because even though I know she's super controversial and she really pisses psychologists off,
Right.
but she is like, don't blame yourself. Do this, do this, do this, do this, do this.
Right. Yeah.
Grateful for her, really.
Very good. Yeah, and for me, yes, like I've gone to Dave. Dave is the one I go to. Um, I feel very connected to Dave. We have like a very soulful connection. I feel like he's my brother. So
Yeah.
when I've had a couple dark nights of the psychic soul, and I've gone to Dave Johnson because he and there's something about what I've found in doing channeling work
Mhm.
that I hang with people where we match, our vibe matches,
Right.
because when Dave and I have the ability to journey together, and when channelers do that, their frequency is uniting, and
Mhm.
you're zooming around the universe,
Mhm.
as one. So for me, yes, I've used Dave Johnson as to help me see things. And so, like this last time that I went, Pink is my guide, and he showed up. And it was kind of like I got the what for, but Dave got, like, when I was channeling, I was like pointing my finger at Dave because it
Maybe
was Pink was giving him the what for, and kind
she
of
was.
wrapping it
Yeah.
up, like,
Yeah. Stop.
keep going. Yeah. Get
Yes.
busy, get spiritual. You guys do you. Just get out there and get the message out. Don't worry about it. And so yes, and I've used, like, for me, I do healings. I'm really into Sasquatch, and I have a Sasquatch guide, and but I came to really understand more about that by I had a reading done with Gail Fowler, the urban shaman,
Mm.
and she because when I was a child, I saw Sasquatch up on the Olympic Peninsula, and I saw these twins, and I had quite an experience. But it turns out that they were there when my son was born. So we will see Sasquatch in form, but Sasquatch is very much a part of us and as guides. And so it was amazing how Gail described the birth of Sam, because it went on for days, and nobody would know what happened during that, but it was described, and I was like, oh my goodness. But it helped me to understand me and what I'm able to do. And from that reading, I was able to take that information, but it clarified for me more about how I can help folks heal, like heal energy and see blockages. And so, yeah, I use readers as well. And yes, I intuit for myself, and that's the thing. As I've grown in my abilities, I can use dream time essentially to ask my questions and then get answers. But as far as it just helps. It helps to unite like with someone like Dave, right?
Mm,
Who can guide me and help me get in there and get there. So yeah.
yeah.
As far as alcohol, I mean, are you talking about like using alcohol when you are doing psychic work or just alcohol? I mean, alcohol, like Dave says, we got to be careful about using it to numb out, but I don't know. Folks use ayahuasca or they use pot,
Yeah.
right? So
Well, I feel like ayahuasca is, you're not daily, you're not doing that every day. Um, and you're doing it in a very controlled situation, a very controlled. I did a similar ceremony, and the woman was vastly experienced. She was
yeah.
a, authentic shaman, and she said, "I said, do you imbibe? Do you take some?" She's like, "Oh, dude, don't ever work with a shaman that doesn't take their own medicine, right? Ever." I'm like, "Oh, wow, very controlled circuit." I mean, and that is important to note. I have known people who have done ceremony here, and the person who was leading it was not trained, and they did not know what they were doing, and they couldn't help those people during that process. Because sometimes, people are crying for an hour, and they, like letting out the sadness of the universe. It's better to have somebody, with you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
this is a cool question.
Yeah. How did I realize I could talk to spirit and ETs? I met my spirit guide in person when I was 19, like had a conversation, and his name is Pink Carmigia. And I met my ET guide in person when I was 22, and that is Courtney.
Jen, you got to say what you mean by in person, because I think some people like don't know your story.
Well, so I was pretty depressed as a teenager. I attempted suicide at 19, and I was going down the tunnel to meet my grandma Leela and Chris Fagan, who was a childhood friend who had died of a brain tumor, and they were there, and I was all happy to go. The light was warm and beautiful, and I was just in such pain, like my heart, my soul was broken. And there was grandma and she was smiling. And as I got closer to her, her smile faded and she was like, no. And then I felt myself pulled back. And I was in my room and there was this man by my bed. And I looked up and this very tall man and had gray hair and little glasses, was wearing a black and red checked flannel shirt over his clothes. It was kind of a tunicky shirt with jeans. And I was like, who are you? And it was like he was trying to find his words. And I finished his sentence and I said, a volunteer firefighter? Because I lived in Gig Harbor. It was very rural at the time and we were dependent on volunteer services. And so he was like, yeah. But then he told me that, to hang in there, that life was not always going to be like this for me, that I just had to get through this time, that, I need to stay around for a while, essentially. And I just thought, wow. But, I was real woozy. I had taken a whole bunch of pills and, I was kind of in and out. And I was like, wow, that's a really weird thing for a volunteer firefighter to say. But
Yeah.
like it was so strange. But anyway, so then my boyfriend came home and the paramedics were called. But after that, a few days later, I was walking up to my car, and I drove a Carmen Ghia. I was into my blue Carmen Ghia, and my friend, we commuted. She had a yellow Carmen Ghia, and we commuted to school together. And I had seen this pink Carmen Ghia like peppered everywhere. It was at stoplights and stop signs, and I would see it and I would say, Kathy, there's that pink Carmen Ghia. And at the time, leading up to the attempt, I was very depressed. So it was kind of like that was the beginning of the introduction, because when I walked up to the road where my car was, I saw the pink Carmen Ghia. It was like it slowed down and it was almost in mist. And it was this most beautiful pink purpley color, which I loved. And inside was Pink, the man, that the volunteer firefighter, and he was waving like this, and my jaw dropped to the ground. I was like, whoa. But I didn't understand, because I was 19. I was still a kid and I didn't understand any of that. And then it happened again when I was 22. I was better, but I was still a very depressed person, I really needed some help. And I was up in Bellingham going to college, and met Courtney. She was at the restaurant that I was working at. I waited on her, and Jennifer, who was her partner. And it was interesting. We had a great time. I really loved her. I loved her energy. She left her card. But I didn't really look at the card. I didn't understand. It was just her name. And, but where I went to school was kind of this area called Fairhaven. It was more of the hippie area where the coffee houses were in the old Fairhaven building. And I love that building. It was built in the early 1900s and had this beautiful staircase, and it was like 5 stories high, but you could see the banister that, you could walk. Each floor was a catwalk. And so for some reason, I went up to the very top floor to the back corner, and I looked in the window, and there was Courtney in this office. And she opened the door and said, well, you found me. And I was like, what? But I didn't really think about that. It was interesting. So I worked with her for 9 months, and she helped me in ways that were so different than anything I've ever experienced. And just this love and kindness. And she had these blue eyes that were ginormous, and so full of love. And it was wonderful. But then I was going to move to Hawaii, and she was going home. And so the last 2 sessions that we had, she told me who she was, why she was here. She was a walk-in from Cirrus B, that I too am, and I kind of have a mission. She told me what that was, and it's to move humanity forward through understanding our emotions and the frequencies, how that helps us to rise and to ascend. But also, in 2027, we are going to be experiencing full disclosure. And so there needs to be more people to start talking about ETs and what that is like, what the dimensions are like, that we need to learn about it so we're not afraid of it. And so anyway, I was coming home I had been at my family's house, and I was coming through the mountains because it's really cool. You kind of crest and then you come down into Bellingham. It's really beautiful. And I had my car had a sunroof, and I would, leave it open and play U2, And so I looked up, and there was a craft upside down. It looked like an aircraft carrier. And it was a ginormous craft, you guys. And so it raised up, and then it collected like 5 little Tic Tacs, just whoop, 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 whoop. and I saw it. I mean, because my sunroof was huge, and then it just took off, and then I had missing time, and
Oh.
yeah, so that's how I met Courtney. But Courtney told me that when I would need her to see her eyes and ask my question, like if I was struggling with something. And so she said, just close your eyes and see my eyes. And I
Wow.
would do that. And then my daughter, I was really into the Isetti Ranch, which is on the border of Washington State and Oregon at Mount Adams. And you can go on YouTube and look up videos of this place, and you can see that there's like a garage door on the top of Mount Adams, and folks will turn on their iPhones or their cell phones and put it on slow motion, and you can catch craft, flying around, going in and out. And it's this place where they channel a couple of, collective consciousness. There's one Pleiadian, I can't remember their names, a Pleiadian and an Arcturon, and there's these people that hang out there. The guy that owns it lives there. So you can camp there. There's a stargazers field where they have tons of lawn chairs, and you just lie back, and at night you just watch. It's like a light show, and it's craft all in the sky. And then they're in the dome and they channel and give messages. And so I just love this place. And every time we go, me and McKenna, my daughter, I'd make her go. We would come home and I would have really incredible experiences. And that's how I got back in touch with Courtney, came to me. And there was this like being that would be at the end of my bed when I would kind of wake up. And finally I said, are you Courtney? Because this being had those blue eyes. And I made the connection. And then, yes, she was waiting for me to have that recognition within myself. And so now then after that, it was just like, oh my God. I would get up at 4 a.m. and then I was just typing all my starseed stuff, just channeling information. So I had tons and tons of information about star systems, why we're here, and all kinds of messages. So
Wow. I'd love to see them, more of them, I should say.
yeah, well, I'm putting together a book. So yeah,
good for you.
Yeah. So. But anyway, that's how I realized. Long story short.
It's a terrific story. It is. That should be a book, right? It's terrific.
Well, we need to that's the point, you guys. We need to get comfortable being able to talk about this and understand it, because we are going to have full disclosure in 2027. September.
And the ETs are trying to help us. They do walk among us, right? They are there. And I often have clients say, this miracle person showed up just at the right moment and then disappeared, and I've never seen them again. The people that I was channeling with, I've never seen again.
Yeah. All right. So this is for you, Dave. My tolerance for BS has always been low. Hi, Colleen. Thank you, hon. But people assume when I'm spiritual that I have to give people so much grace. That's a good one.
It's a really good one. I'm having difficulty answering this one. Yeah. Look, don't tolerate BS. There is this whole thing in our culture. And again, Teal Swan does a great job of talking about people who are angry and they're completely rejected. Look, there are people, if you are angry, sometimes you're there protecting yourself. You're protecting your child. You've experienced loss before or assault before, and you are protecting yourself. And it's like, you've had it with the nonsense. It's really hard. Colleen, I hope you don't work in the corporate world. Because if you do, that it's nothing but this nonsense, this BS, this pretense, and you'll be working with a bunch of people who won't stand up with you, and it sucks very much. You very much feel alone. I can't tell you how many times I'd be that one person, be like, you can't pay us minimum wage for that. It's against the law, and nobody would back me up. And it would make me so mad.
Mhm.
And I really respect the fact that people, will say, hey, you're cutting in line. That's not okay. There's a
Mhm.
nice way to do that, a peaceful way to do that. I'm not there yet. I'm working on it. But no, don't tolerate it. Don't tolerate it. I would say, though, understand at the same time that we're not above that. And I say that again from my own experience. I really am like, oh, how can I deal with this stupid person? But I do have to go, Dave, why are you dealing? Why is this in your field?
Mhm.
Is there a compassionate way that you can say no? Maybe there's not, Colleen. Maybe there's not a compassionate way, and you just need to say no. No, when I'm teaching people, and often I can see, look, in the future, you're going to be leading a group. Usually people are like, oh, me, no way, I'll never do that. And I'm like, yes, you will. You'll be leading a group and you'll be teaching them spiritual stuff. And they usually absolutely do not believe me. And then they wind up making these incremental steps and doing it. But I always tell them, you have to be strong enough. If you have 10 people in the room and if somebody's behaving inappropriately, you have to be strong enough to go to them and say, I need to talk to you, get your stuff and say, this isn't the best group for you. Go in peace. You have to be that strong to protect the people in the group, to protect the what you are doing. So, Colleen, you're totally there. There is this difficult combination of being very directive and sticking to the point and going in the direction that you want to, and also being compassionate. It is not a simple answer that I would have to you. It is also true that whether we're communicating a no in a nice way or we're communicating like, okay, I understand you, I'm going to integrate into that group, it is a learning experience for you and me and anybody leading. We are learning as we're doing it. We're making a decision. Is this my ego that's saying no? Or is this really like, no? It is absolutely 100% a good question for that reason.
Yeah, excellent question.
Mm.
All right. Tony Stokes, what prompted you to start your new YouTube channel? Do you have a new YouTube channel?
I do. I have started I'm going to say, we just created it, so I keep forgetting the name, Cosmic Consciousness Collective. I'm pretty sure
Oh,
that's it.
okay.
Yeah. And we started it because we are doing group channeling work. And as a set of group channelers, we wanted a separate channel that would be not just about me, but there are other people in this group doing fantastic work. Some of them are just learning to channel, and some of them are full-on trance channeling. Really great work and really great to support it. But people who tune into political reasons, that's not their bag. That's not what they're looking for. And people, they say 12 minutes is the perfect video. That's how much people on a phone on the way to work, that's how much time they have to explore YouTube. They don't necessarily have an hour and a half. So there is my regular channel, which is just these shorter chunks of stuff. And this is longer stuff is more for somebody who really wants to spend an hour, looking at the mysteries of the universe. I, again, really recommend it. I'll put a link there in my next video, because these are just wonderful, wonderful, like any question for the universe you want answered. And they will, fantastic, fantastic work.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Thank you, Tony. That's great. All right. How about one more question, and then we'll let you all go. I just want everyone to know that Dave and I are going to be doing this on Thursday nights and Friday mornings in Australia.
Yeah.
For a few weeks, we're going to give it a whirl, see how it goes. And, if you have questions, we'd like you to leave them in the comments afterward. And then we can pick it up from there and answer questions and kind of, we want to have this dialogue and, open up about spiritual questions. Tonight we're focusing on spirit. So good. So Chris has a question about, why do you think more readers don't address the spiritual topic? Well,
did you want to answer? Should
you
I?
go ahead.
Okay, well, I had an interesting experience. I was on they call us channelers, and I really like that show, so I was really super happy to be on it. But I kind of read the brief beforehand, and he wanted the brief said he wanted politics in this time, and he wanted to know the connection between politics and spirit. And we kind of went more down the political line, and it wasn't a very. He put it up, but I don't think it was particularly successful. Among other things, I was wearing the wrong shirt, and just there were other technical issues. The sound, it was echoey, and there were issues. But it was just like I didn't get the brief. Like I was going on this political channel. I don't think people really look at channeling stuff for the politics. They're looking for something else. So my vibration is sort of here, and they're looking for this. I don't regret it because I think that it's important to look at the social situation that we live in and address these things. This is an emergency where democracy is fading. But it's kind of incumbent on people. If you have a political channel, that's what people are tuning in to. And if they don't get politics, they're going to be like, why am I looking at this? And they'll move on to something else. So if you've got a political channel, you do kind of have to do politics. If you've got a spiritual channel, then you do have to do spirit. There is a little bit of connection, I think. I think that both of those things could be more or less. Abraham Hicks impresses me because she did address Trump. And 99% of her stuff is, like, hey, higher vibration, higher vibration, higher vibration. And I think she attracts Republicans and Democrats. And everybody can watch her. And I think she's opened it up in a great way. But when she was asked for Trump, she said, he's a con man. And she said more. And she got furious responses. It was a big risk for her. She pissed people off. When she was asked about the COVID meds, she gave a very kind sort of, we have resistance to these things. No one likes to be told what to do. And she gave an analogy. She didn't necessarily answer directly. I have never seen such furious comments leveled at her. Readers are taking a risk when they cross from one to the other. We're taking a risk, and we're not doing it for the money. Right. The money is, fear, 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 fear. That's the money. So yeah, it's just a lot about media and just what people are tuning into.
Cool. Very good. Okay, but here's one more. Okay. I said this was the last one, but this. Hi, Susan. So does a trance medium need to have another person to ask questions?
It's helpful.
It is helpful.
Yeah, it's really helpful. I would say almost certainly yes. At least I'm not there. I cannot go, trance, trance. Maybe, what happens? I tend to, especially working with the Cosmic Consciousness Collective, I tend to, we talk about the questions beforehand so that when we are actually channeling, the person next to us they already know what the question is so that they can ask, right? And sometimes I say, when I am channeling, could you ask that question? Or I won't be channeling myself and I'll be asking the questions. And that's actually, just as interesting for me. Yeah. I want to know. People channel ETs and I want to know. So it's really helpful.
Very cool. Good question. David, this has been so awesome. Everyone, you've been so awesome. Gosh, we had like 500 people here. Woo!
Yeah, right on, you guys. This has been great. I'm really looking forward to
Yeah, I know. It's exciting. It's
great
so, yeah, really great questions, you guys. So like I said, just go ahead and put them. Both Dave and I broadcasted to our channel, so just go ahead and put your questions in, and we'll pick up next week and kind of make that the routine. So good.
I'm just going to say to everybody, use Jen as a resource. She's a wonderful resource. She really has access to just so much great information. I really want to encourage you because as she says, I've helped her. She's helped me just as much. We are probably coming from just slightly different angles, but going to the same place. It's great to work with her.
Yeah, it's really neat. So awesome. I'm so excited for this. All right. Let's see. Just Politics is on Saturday. We got a crystal class coming up May 18th. I've got 15% off all services right now. So if you go to my website, jenbushman.com, it's Pixie15 is the secret code. So check it out.
Okay.
Dave's got a site too, Moonride.
Moonride.com.au. Yeah. And I have 3 different channels, right?
What?
I have 3 channels.
You do?
Yeah, one of them is Pyramid 4. I just created the Consciousness Cosmic Collective. And of course, I got Moonride. Website is Moonride.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, guys. So we'll see you. We'll see you next Thursday. Have a good
Looking forward.
week. All right.